morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night to all my vegans, veganettes, and not so vegans across the globe. It's your girl Abeje TheAtre, and welcome back to another episode of Cause It's Vegan. I gotta eat it. There's no way I could ever go vegan. I'm not about to spend the rest of my life eating rabbit food. So today, you guys, we are making fish. There, see, I got straight to it. I found a recipe on YouTube by a lady named Chef Jana, which is actually funny because she got it from someone else, but I'm just looking at her recipe. And it is made with oyster mushrooms. So I'm really excited to try this recipe because I absolutely love oyster mushrooms. I feel like they're perfect for pretty much everything. I was following her recipe, but one of the things she did say is that you don't want the mixture to be too wet. My first batch was a little wet, so I had a hard time. I did struggle with making the shape of the fish. However, I did go ahead and put them in the freezer to try to get them to solidify more. So I made a second batch, and with that batch, it was a lot less sticky, a lot less liquidy. Once you make the mixture, you put it in the freezer for about 20 minutes, and then you can get to frying it after that. So as you can see, I've already made my big old mess and everything. Well, I guess it's not a big mess. I just always feel messy with flour. Alright, you guys, so I have just finished cooking the first batch of the fish. It is actually going to be the correct ones that I will show you. Oil splashed on my finger, so yeah, there's that. But let me show you guys how these look because they look pretty good. Look at that. Okay, so that's how those look, and I currently have the two original ones that I kind of messed up on the stove right now. Those will be done in like 3 minutes. So since the correct batch is done, I'm gonna go ahead and try it out to see if this recipe is good. Oh, also I wanna add that I did put some Old Bay seasoning in my thing. It was like 2 teaspoons, I think I put. Just because even though she said you didn't really need to put any seasonings, just a little kelp if you wanted, like she didn't add any seasonings at all, which was kind of weird to me, so I had to add a little something, but let's try it. All right, so I'm gonna cut it really quick just so we can get a sneak peek on the inside. Okay, so this is what the inside looks like. Looks kind of cool, pretty interesting, but what matters most is what this tastes like. So here we go. Okay, so this is very interesting. To me, it does taste very fish-like. However, it's lacking in seasoning. I mean, it's not nasty. I think, you know, just get some kind of dip, whether it's tartar sauce or ketchup or whatever. But just get some kind of dip and it'll be just fine. It's not completely flavorless, but it just could use more flavor. Probably some more Old Bay seasoning or something else. But I was trying to stick as close as possible to the lady's recipe. Of course, I put a little Old Bay because no seasoning at all sounded kind of weird to me. Nevertheless, I can tell that with this recipe, as long as you season it right, this fish will slap for real. I have the first batch that I kind of messed up on that is out now. I'm gonna cut that, try that. With this batch, I think I didn't put any Old Bay seasoning. And that was the timer for the bread, so don't worry about that. Also, I just want to say, as far as the ones that I messed up on, they look exactly the same as the other ones, but I think a lot of that has to do with me putting them in the freezer. So when you're making this recipe, if you accidentally make your batch too wet, just know you'll have to use a little more flour to try to get that stuff to stick together. But as soon as you pop it in the freezer, mine was definitely over 20 minutes that I kept them in the freezer. But when you pop them in there, when it's time to cook them, it's not gonna fall apart or anything in your skillet. Now with this batch that I did, it definitely looks a lot more wet on the inside. Let me see if y'all can see, probably not, but I can tell in person, it seems a little more wet, which I don't have a problem with as long as it's not falling apart. Let's try it out. Ooh, it's hot. This is really good. Also, I take that back. The first batch, I put more Old Bay seasoning. The correct batch, I put less Old Bay seasoning. I should have put more Old Bay seasoning. because this is really, really good. Yes, 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 and yes. Make sure you season this. Don't listen to that lady on her YouTube channel. I think this recipe is great that she found and, you know, she showed to me. I don't know where she got it from, but you definitely don't listen to her in the seasoning realm. You need to season this in order for it to really taste like fish, which of course, you know, meat and fish, they don't really taste like anything until you season them anyway. But the mistakes are definitely a lot more flavorful than the ones I made more closely to her recipe. Okay, so I actually decided to finish eating the food to really truly get the true essence of both the fish I made a mistake on and the fish that I did correctly. And I have to say, as far as the fish that I did correctly, like I said, overall I think that was very good. The only thing it was lacking in was seasoning. So of course that's something that's easily fixable. When it comes to the fish I made a mistake on, I have to say she's definitely right when she says you don't want it to be too sticky and too wet, because then what happens is you do have to add more flour, like I ended up having to do. The problem with this, as I was eating the fish, I started to taste that flour a little bit, and it wasn't like too overbearing that I couldn't finish the fish, but I was like, I can taste this flour, not really a big fan of it. So definitely you do want to make sure then that you get all of the water, or as much of the water out of the mushroom as possible, because of course you're going to want to clean off your mushrooms. I know a lot of people say that you shouldn't wash your mushrooms because they already absorb water and that you should just wipe them off with paper towels. I still wash my mushrooms, but what I would do with the oyster mushroom is after you wash it, you can squeeze it to squeeze that water out, and it's going to be, you know, blended up anyway. So that is what I would advise to you. One thing that I did favor a lot about the fish, wrong or right, the both of them, is that the fish did not fall apart as I was eating it. And I really appreciated that, because I was like, oh, there's so many things on the inside that could be, you know, falling out, falling apart and everything, but it was actually structured very well. So you won't have any problems with that. As long as you follow the recipe, you will be okay. Even if you do happen to make a little bit of a mistake, you will be okay. But you want to stick as close to the recipe as possible to make sure your stuff's not too wet. But that is about it. I will make sure I leave the link to her video in the description below so that you can try it out. Just remember to throw on your seasoning that you want. Other than that, you guys have an absolutely magnificent day, and remember to love peaches and all the sneeches.